Throughout history, pagan symbols have been absorbed into Christian traditions, sometimes with new meanings, but often retaining their original essence. Among these, the obelisk stands out, an ancient Egyptian monument dedicated to the sun god, now found in Christian cemeteries and even at the heart of the Vatican. The Vatican's 83-foot obelisk, originally from a sun temple in Heliopolis, was later transported to Rome. But if Rome had truly embraced Christ, why did Pope Sixtus V place this pagan monument at the very heart of St. Peter's Square in 1586, centuries after Rome supposedly became Christian? Why was it preserved at all, considering it was once dedicated to Baal, a deity directly opposed to God? In Hebrew, the word for adversary is Satan, so why does a symbol tied to Christ's enemy stand at the center of Vatican City? The pentagram, a 5-point star often enclosed in a circle, has long been linked to occultism, Wicca, magic, and ancient mysticism. Yet, surprisingly, it also appears in the architecture of some Christian churches. How did a symbol rooted in Babylonian esotericism find its way into spaces meant to honor Christ? In Babylon, the pentagram held deep mystical significance, and traces of it can still be found in medieval church architecture. Atterbury Church in Oxfordshire, for example, features pentagrams carved into its stonework, suggesting either an early attempt to rebrand the symbol or a lingering connection to pre-Christian mystical traditions. By the Renaissance, the pentagram had become even more closely associated with secret knowledge, alchemy, and Freemasonry, where it was revered as the blazing star, a symbol of hidden wisdom and enlightenment. But could this provide a clearer understanding of Revelation 18 verse 23? For by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. The Vesica piscis, a geometric form created by two overlapping circles, has long held mystical significance. In pagan traditions, it symbolized the union of opposites, creation, and fertility cults, often representing the divine feminine. Pythagoreans and Gnostics revered it as sacred geometry, associating it with cosmic balance and hidden knowledge. But perhaps its most striking use is found in St. Peter's Square, designed by Bernini. Some scholars suggest that the oval layout isn't just an artistic choice, it forms a massive Vesica piscis, with the obelisk at its center, serving as a focal point of divine and earthly power. This symbol isn't unique to church architecture, it is a core emblem of Freemasonry, appearing on Masonic lodge seals and esoteric engravings. So the question remains, what is a Masonic symbol doing at the very heart of the Vatican? Many medieval cathedrals feature labyrinths in their floors, with the most famous example at Chartres Cathedral, built in the 13th century. These intricate pathways were introduced as symbolic pilgrimages for worshippers unable to travel to Jerusalem. But did this practice truly originate in Christianity? Not at all. Labyrinths have long been linked to ancient mystery religions, representing spiritual transformation, initiation, and a journey through different levels of consciousness. They were sacred pathways in Egyptian, Babylonian, and Druidic traditions, often tied to rituals of rebirth, enlightenment, and communication with the spirit world. Many ancient cultures saw labyrinth walking as a spiritual initiation, symbolizing the soul's passage through trials toward enlightenment. In esoteric traditions, the winding path reflects the dual struggle of order and chaos, light and darkness, ultimately leading to inner divinity or hidden wisdom, concepts deeply embedded in paganism and mystery schools. During the medieval era, labyrinths were incorporated into cathedral floors, often presented as Christian symbols. However, their roots remain in ancient mystical traditions, raising the question, do they truly align with biblical worship, or are they remnants of esoteric practices subtly woven into Christianity? This image presents what is supposed to be Christ enthroned, yet surrounding him are the 12 symbols of the Zodiac, a clear indication of astrological influence. But why would a depiction of Jesus incorporate imagery rooted in pagan astrology and Babylonian mysticism, practices that God himself condemns? The Bible explicitly warns against astrology, divination, and the worship of celestial bodies, yet here, these very symbols are placed around the figure meant to represent the Son of God. This raises a critical question: is this a case of artistic reinterpretation, or does it reveal a deeper blending of biblical faith with ancient mystical traditions? The zodiac is not a Christian concept. Its origins trace back to Babylonian star worship, where astrologers sought divine messages in celestial alignments. The Bible directly condemns astrology, as seen in Isaiah 47 verses 13 to 14, where God rebukes Babylon for trusting in astrologers and stargazers, declaring they shall be burned like stubble. Yet, in what is supposed to be a depiction of Christ enthroned, we see these very symbols embedded in Catholic Church artwork. If astrology is condemned by God, why is it exalted in a place of worship? The golden sun disk behind Christ raises further concerns. The halo in Christian art is not of biblical origin. It was borrowed from pagan solar deities like Amun-Ra, Mithras, and Sol Invictus, who were all depicted with radiant sun disks to symbolize divine power. But Christ is not a sun god, he is the Son of God, and there is a vast difference. Deuteronomy 4, verse 19 warns against worshipping celestial bodies, yet this imagery suggests an unbiblical fusion of Christianity with sun worship. Even the throne and hand gestures in these images echo occult influences. The firelit torches resemble ancient ritual flames, and the hand position mirrors Masonic, Gnostic, and Eastern mystical blessings, none of which are biblically rooted. Nowhere in Scripture is Jesus described as sitting on a throne encircled by zodiac signs. Babylon, the cradle of many esoteric traditions, also held the crescent moon and star as powerful religious symbols. In ancient Mesopotamian culture, the crescent represented the moon god Sin, one of the chief deities worshipped throughout Babylon, Assyria, and later Arabia. The star, often linked to Ishtar, the Queen of Heaven, symbolized fertility, divine rulership, and cosmic duality. This pairing of crescent and star reflected the union of celestial forces, male and female, sun and moon, heaven and earth, central to mystery religions and occult traditions. Over time, this imagery was absorbed into various cultures, culminating in its strong association with Islam during the rise of the Ottoman Empire. Interestingly, this same symbol appears in Freemasonry, particularly in the Shriner's emblem, which blends Islamic, esoteric, and mystical influences. Given this deep-rooted history, its use in modern interfaith dialogue, especially between the Pope and Islamic leaders, raises questions. Egyptian religion left a deep mark on Christian traditions, and one of the clearest examples is the striking resemblance between the cult of Isis and Horus, and the later veneration of Mary and the infant Jesus. In Egyptian mythology, Isis, the great mother goddess, was often shown nursing her divine son Horus. The same imagery appears in early Christian iconography, but was it a natural evolution or a deliberate borrowing? Across pagan religions, mother and child worship was already a dominant theme, whether in Egypt with Isis and Horus, in India with Devaki and Krishna, or in Rome with Venus and Cupid. The resemblance is undeniable. In fact, some archaeologists struggle to tell the difference between early Madonna and child icons and their pagan predecessors. Even the titled Queen of Heaven, which the Bible condemns in Jeremiah 7 verse 18 as referring to a pagan goddess, was later applied to Mary despite Scripture's clear opposition. It's important to keep in mind that Satan imitates everything of God, as he seeks to elevate himself above the Most High. He already knew about the coming of the Messiah born of a woman, and this foreknowledge influences his attempts to distort and counter God's plan. He was told in the Garden of Eden that the woman's seed would crush his head, solidifying his awareness of the ultimate defeat foretold by God. The influence of Egyptian and Babylonian religious hierarchy is also evident in the structure and symbols of the institutional church. The title Pontifex Maximus, once held by Rome's pagan high priests, was later adopted by the Pope. The same system that ruled over the mystery religions of Egypt and Babylon was simply repackaged under a new name. The tall ceremonial headpiece worn by popes and bishops, the mitre, bears an uncanny resemblance to the headdress of Dagon's priests, the Babylonian fish god. Ancient depictions show these priests wearing fish-shaped hats, and the bishop's mitre follows the same design. Coincidence, or another hidden borrowing? Even the rituals of ancient Egypt found their way into Catholic traditions. Pharaohs and high priests were carried on ceremonial thrones, flanked by ostrich feather fans as a sign of divine authority. The exact same practice later appeared in the papal procession, where the Pope was carried on the sedia gestatoria, surrounded by those same feathered fans. These aren't minor similarities, they reflect a direct continuation of rituals used to honor rulers as godlike figures. Then there's the serpent. The cobra, or uraeus, seen on the pharaoh's crown wasn't just decoration, it symbolized divine wisdom and power. Across ancient mystery religions, the serpent was a symbol of hidden knowledge and enlightenment. But this aligns disturbingly with Genesis 3 verse 5, where the serpent deceives Eve, promising divine wisdom. Ye shall be as gods. In Egypt, the serpent represented the ruler's connection to divine authority. Later, this concept re-emerged in Roman emperor worship, papal authority, and esoteric traditions, where the serpent, rather than being seen as a deceiver, was revered as a symbol of wisdom and enlightenment. This imagery is not merely symbolic. Serpents appear on several papal coat of arms, most notably on that of Pope Gregory X, where one is disturbingly depicted devouring a child. This is exactly what Israel was condemned for in the Old Testament, adopting elements of Egyptian and Canaanite worship, provoking God's judgment. Ezekiel 23 verse 19 warns how Israel increased her whorings, remembering Egypt, a chilling reflection of how Christianity, rather than replacing paganism, absorbed and rebranded it under a new name, thanks to Rome. Wine was more than just a drink in Babylonian, Egyptian, Greek, and Roman religious rites. It was a potent spiritual conduit used to invoke deities, conduct rituals, and bind participants to occultic covenants. Offerings of wine were routinely made to false gods like Ishtar and Baal, with the pontiff acting as his high priest and earthly representative. Through ritual enchantments, priests infused the wine with spiritual significance, binding those who consumed it to these false gods. This mirrors the practices of mystery religions, where consecrated wine was believed to unite the drinker with the deity being worshipped. The Bible warns against such practices in Proverbs 23 verses 31 to 32. Look not thou upon the wine when it is red, when it giveth his colour in the cup, when it moveth itself aright. At the last it biteth like a serpent, and stingeth like an adder. Reinforcing the idea that consuming ritually consecrated wine could lead to spiritual entanglement with demonic entities. While wine in the Bible is often associated with feasts and celebrations, its use in pagan rituals serves as a stark reminder that even seemingly ordinary substances can be spiritually manipulated. The process of cursing wine was never random, it was a deliberate act of control, deception, and bondage. Pagan priests, witches, and sorcerers understood that wine could serve as a medium for invoking spirits, sealing spiritual contracts, or placing an unseen influence over those who drank it. Through ritualistic words and dedications to false gods, the wine was believed to be inhabited by demonic entities, ensuring that anyone who consumed it unknowingly aligned themselves with these spirits. This practice echoes the warning in 1 Corinthians 10 verse 20, which states, "The things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils, and not to God, and I would not that ye should have fellowship with devils." Could some religious traditions today still carry remnants of this occult practice? Could baptism be the first act of witchcraft cast upon a child? In ancient solar cults, water was ritually consecrated with fire before ceremonies, signifying spiritual transformation, not through faith, but through occult purification. If these pagan rites involved initiating infants into a belief system through fire and water, then what exactly is happening in an unbiblical infant baptism, where a helpless child is subjected to a ritual without understanding or consent? The Bible teaches that baptism is an outward expression of faith and repentance, a choice an infant cannot make. Yet, in these rites, water is mystically empowered, invoking a spiritual force upon the child. If biblical baptism is meant to symbolize a believer's conscious choice to follow Christ, then infant baptism, with its parallels to ancient mystery religion initiations, raises a chilling question: what spirit is being invoked over these children? If pagan fire and water rituals were designed to dedicate souls to the sun god, then what force is at work when water is consecrated and poured upon an infant in a system that mirrors these pre-Christian ceremonies? Is this the baptism Christ commanded, or is it an occult initiation rite disguised under Christian terminology? 2 Corinthians 4, verse 4, delivers a sobering warning. The God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them.